Hey. Today we are talking about, are you feeling weak? And it seems to be showing up in more ways than you care to admit. Things like the grocery bags feel heavier, or you're using two hands to pick up the saucepans, or maybe you're finding it harder to lift the mattress when you go to put the sheets on, or maybe possibly you are using the kitchen cupboards to pull yourself up when you're down at those lower cupboards. The list goes on and on and on in the way that weakness can show up in a daily life. So it is Peter here, and I am, as always, joined by the lovely Sally Ann. G'day,
Sally
Sally.
Ann.
How are you
Hi,
doing
how are
today?
you?
Yeah,
Good, thank you.
good.
How are you?
Yeah, no, really good. Good. Can you add to that list, Sal? Any other things that you might notice that you're getting weaker in?
Grandchildren.
Oh,
Picking
picking
those
them up.
grandies up. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're starting to notice that, are you, yourself personally?
yeah. No, not so much noticing it, but I was just thinking then, like a lot of our ladies have grandchildren.
Mm.
Yeah, picking those grandkids up.
Yeah. And particularly when you haven't done something for maybe a week or two, if you've been sick or something like that, you can really start to notice it. Like I, had only had a week off type of thing from doing all the feed bins and the water buckets and everything down at the stables. And I went to get the buckets out and I went, oh, they feel heavier than what they normally do. So yeah,
Yes.
it can definitely show up fairly quickly as well too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the other thing that I was thinking about is that little grunting noise. You know, you go to sit down, you go, oh.
Yes. Or you make that noise when you're getting up.
Yeah, exactly. Or I know you've mentioned this one before, where you go to walk up the stairs, but you use the railings
Yes. The
because
holding on.
you're not even, and maybe you're not even conscious of actually holding those railings, you know. Or the other thing that recently happened is Mum and Paul both had to get me to open the bottles of the water. They
Of
couldn't open,
water. Yes.
yeah, they couldn't open the lids.
Yes. Yeah.
So heaps and heaps
Wheelie
of things.
bins, there's so many things. Wheelie bins, taking your wheelie bins out, sometimes
Yeah,
they can get heavy. And the other one I just thought of was your laundry basket.
yeah, absolutely. So,
Mm,
and even like, if you're traveling, lifting up your little tiny bag to put it up in the overhead locker, that's another
yes,
thing. I was talking to one of the ladies the other day, and I said, oh, you need to lift that heavier weight rather than that smaller one. And she said, oh, no, my husband does that. And I said, well, what if he isn't traveling with you? Like, what are you going to do then?
yes, yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah. Look, so feeling weaker can be a natural part of aging, particularly if we're not conscious of maintaining that muscle mass that is on the decline. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and when that happens, we notice that our strength is gone, our flexibility is gone, and it also impacts our balance. And so it really does make it harder for us to do normal everyday things as well as those things that we love and cherish as well. So, you know, and I was thinking about this, there are certain medical conditions that can make us feel a little bit weaker and fatigued. So if you're feeling like that, it could be a good idea to just go and get the general checkup as well too, just to make sure that there isn't anything else underlying there. And if you're going through menopause, those hormonal changes can have an impact on making you feel that little bit weaker as well.
Work as well, yeah. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
going to add too, like those things can drop off, but what can increase too is the I can'ts.
Oh, the mindset
Because
stuff. Yeah.
yes, because that weakness, that physical weakness that you're feeling has creeped in, crept in. So are you saying I can't a lot more?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you're using it as a bit of an excuse.
Yeah,
I'm older or I'm feeling weaker, so therefore I cannot do something.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Like asking the husband to put the luggage in the over.
overhead
locker
blocker
type things. Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about what we can do to, counterbalance this weakness that we might be feeling. First and foremost, you just have to say strength training. I mean, it's the be all and
Absolutely.
end
Yeah.
all,
That's
really.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to be
And
doing
strength training is not walking.
it. There was a little wiggly finger with that, I think, everybody.
Yes. Unless you're doing the strength training on your walk.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it's true. It isn't strength training as well, too. The strength training is things like body weight training, like push-ups, whether that be against the wall or an elevation or on the floor. So, you're just using all of your body to act as that barrier, that obstacle, so that you're powering through that. Um, so, so yeah, body weight is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is with, weights, any type of weights, barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, all those types of things. What else, Sel?
Resistance bands.
Oh, yes, that's a goodie. Yeah.
Resistance bands. And keeping in mind, resistance bands aren't just that get buying
No.
your pack of three and just using the easy one. It's no different to if you were increasing those weights, going from 2 kilos to 4 kilos, go up in your
Yeah.
resistance bands.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is at the gym, obviously, you can use some of that beautiful fancy equipment that they have there as well. So
Yeah.
might as well take advantage of it. If you're at a gym, yeah, go on.
I mean, you're a perfect example of what you can use around the farm.
Oh, God, yeah. That's
Yeah,
so much. Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And the farmer's walk, I think, is a really, really great place to start, because it is one of those exercises that it is about stabilization. So the very first thing that you should look at when you're starting an exercise program is to make sure that your body is stable, because otherwise, if you start lifting on top of that heavy things, then you're just putting yourself at risk of injury. So starting with the basics is really important. And when you start with the farmer's walk, you're holding something on either side of your body, e.g. the buckets of water or horse feed in my case. There's that strength training that's coming from it as well too, because I've got the weight. So you want to try and keep lifting heavier. I know that when I first started doing the water buckets, I'd only fill them up halfway. And then eventually I came up 3/4, and then eventually I got full, 2 full buckets of water. And that was just through persistence. And it really is a great workout because, I'm focused on drawing my belly button in, keeping my shoulders down and relaxed, and, really focused on using those weights. And at times, I'm trying to lift them at the same time so that I'm adding that little bit of extra stuff into it. So yeah, definitely you can do things around, a property. We've got the tie down areas for the horses, so you can do pull-ups on the bars and all sorts of things. So you don't actually have to be going to a gym to get, all those wonderful benefits of strength training as well.
No, that's exactly right. And the other thing I was going to say is when you are doing that strength training and gaining your strength, like you just said with the water buckets, you started halfway, then it was 3/4, then it was
Yeah.
all the way up. That is how you get stronger. Sticking with the same weight, same resistance band, same exercises
Yeah.
are going to keep you the same. You are not going to get stronger. And I think that's a very important part of understanding strength training, is that you have to get to a certain point and challenge your body again.
Yeah, absolutely, Sal. I mean, you really should be looking to go to fatigue, or just below fatigue. So 1 or 2 reps below fatigue. And what does that mean? It means that you can't lift it without getting some help from somebody.
Yeah.
It really is
Or
that
adjusting the
limit.
technique, which you never want to do.
No, exactly. And we see this, where people start throwing their bodies around, when they're doing something as simple as a bicep curl, throwing their backs back. And that's because they are lifting heavier and they've just pushed it too far. And so you really do need to focus on the technique that you're using. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Using momentum rather than using your muscles to build that strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when those injuries can come in. That's when, you can seriously injure yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and the other thing I was just thinking about was your concentric and your eccentric movements, so the up movement and the down movement, let's just say. And so, you want to do a little bit of power with that up movement, so you want to bring it up quickly, but when you're going down, you want to control it.
Yeah.
So, and that's when you're going to really, really start to, stretch out those muscle fibers, tendons, ligaments, and everything. And that's when you're really going to start to see some great impact from that strength training as well, too. Because quite often we will just focus on that one way rather than the other way and let momentum, as you said, or gravity do the work for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, going back to those walks and strength training, saying before, we have got some great videos up in the park, up the road, using the seats, using the little step ups that they have, using the bars that they have. And, probably 9 times out of 10 now, parks have actual exercise equipment in them.
They do.
So it's nothing to take your walk to those machines and use them, and they all have instructions on them, so you can follow along the instructions to figure out how to use the machines. But that's another way to put that strength training into your day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just recently looking after my grandkids down the coast, and I was down there with my son and his wife. And so every morning we got up and we went for a walk along the beach, but we also came back up to the pathway, which had all of the pieces of equipment. And we did, like, the kids and I stopped, and I'd go, okay, 10 reps, and we count one another, then we move to the next one and count one another. And there were parallel bars and all sorts of things that we could have a little play on. So another great way of getting some strength training into your daily life. And like, you could use things out of the cupboard, so you could use tins and bottles and all sorts of things as well if you don't have those weights at home.
When we first went online, back when COVID hit, and a lot of our ladies were using milk cartons with sand to start off with till they got their weights. But there's just so much that you can use for strength training. Yeah.
Look, and there is so much research, you just cannot deny it. It is the thing that we need to do. We're losing, 1% muscle mass per year. So, and that's pretty significant. But that's just muscle mass. But when you then look at, the strength and the power component, it's 1 to 3% that we're losing. So it's not just about the size of it. It's about what we're capable of doing.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I don't think people realize the impact strength training can have on those preventable diseases, but also the ones that aren't preventable. You've got a great story of one of our clients, and she couldn't praise you enough on Wednesday, because where she is at the moment, she would not have got through it without strength training.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
My client that I work with at the moment has Parkinson's, and his example was, and it blew my mind, was because I do strength training with him. Yeah, he's not going to get any better, nothing like that. But he was walking and fell off the path and fell down onto the cement. And by the time it took me to realize that he had a fall, he was standing. He was standing, and he absolutely said it was because of my strength training. He's 67. So strength training isn't about being 25, 30 years old and That's who strength training's for.
Yeah.
It's not about looking good. It's about being strong and staying strong for what happens in our future.
Yeah, and look, it has a massive impact on internally what's happening and our health. So it's really important. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of Glenn, who has been battling cancer for some time, but she has, she has not given up on her exercise the whole time. She
No.
has just kept on going and going and going. And when I popped up to hospital to see her this week, the doctor popped in, and then another doctor popped in, and every time she'd go, "This is my coach, my trainer, and this is why I'm as strong as what I am." And yeah, it was a lovely rap from her.
Yeah.
But she's the one who's doing the work.
Yes.
We're here as coaches. We're just here, instructing you and supporting you, but you're the one who's doing the work. And when you do the work, you get the benefit.
Yeah. And the benefits pop up in the most, I can't even think of the word, thinking about my client, thinking about Glenn. It pops up in your daily life.
Oh, totally does.
The benefits are not going to be popping up, in the FitFlex studio or anything like that. It's going to pop up at the most surprising time.
Yeah, look, I know that like for Kerry, like Kerry said that, the kids, so she runs a home daycare. And so the kids are often throwing the ball up onto the roof. Kerry, scrambles up on the top of the fence and now up onto the roof and gets things. Probably not the ideal thing to do. But she can do it, and she does it constantly. And there are so many things. Like for me, Paul struggles to get down. He can't get down on the ground now. It's a real struggle. And so I've been trying to take him through that education now of how to actually get that strength back. But in the meantime, I'm popping up and down on the ground all the time, putting socks and shoes on and all sorts of things, So it's keeping me stronger, which is a good thing as well too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, so the other noteworthy thing when it comes to feeling weaker is protein. I don't think protein gets enough of a big rap as well too. So, if you think about your carbohydrates and your fats, they're all about giving your body energy, but your body doesn't really store the protein, so you have to keep giving it protein. Yeah, and the protein is the thing that helps your muscles. It helps keep you strong. Strong muscles means strong bones, and that's going to help you prevent those falls and things like that as well too. And I know that, the old research shows that 0.8 per kilo of, ideal body weight is what you want to aim for in your day. But, all of the latest research now shows that that's just not enough.
Yeah.
Particularly as we're aging. And it's almost double that as we're getting into our 60s. Well, I'm in my 60s. So, I've been really ramping up the protein intake, and really, really focusing on it. And the other battle that we have as we're aging is we're not feeling as hungry. Our taste buds aren't as tantalized as what they used to be. And so we will eat less. And so we need to be conscious of eating more, particularly when it comes to that protein, so that we are maintaining and supporting the muscle that we're building.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to, over the years, we've been doing this for 20 years, myself for nearly 13 years. Oh, and there's just so many articles about what you should have and what you shouldn't have. And, once upon a time, red meat was good for you, then it wasn't good for you, then it was good for you. Eggs were good for you. No, eggs weren't good for you. No, white was good for you. No, yolk, and your mind is just like, get back to basics. We always talk about protein, good fat, and a rainbow of veggies on your plate.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Just take it back to basics. So make sure that protein is in there. And you will probably find that you know, by increasing that food, you're probably going, how does that even work? Increasing that food by adding more protein in, you're probably going to lose a few kilos.
Yeah.
In the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with your strength training.
Yeah, absolutely. Basics win.
Yeah.
Oh, so much good stuff there. I think
Yeah.
so. But basically, you know, the moral of the story here is, you know, if you are feeling weaker, it's time to actually add that strength training into your daily life, and make sure you're supporting your strength training by having your protein and this glorious stuff, not the water inside the bottle, the water inside the bottle. Yeah. Because,
Yeah.
you know, after all, our bodies are, you know, almost 70% water, you know, that's what's inside all our cells and everything like that. So we definitely need the water as well.
Especially because we're in Australia, so we're in autumn at the moment, you know. God, we're 25 days from winter, which is scary. But yeah, you know, your water's going to drop off in those cooler months. So yeah, increase your water as well.
Yeah, and because you can always have herbal teas and things like that, so you can have it warm, or even hot water with lemon in it. It's lovely.
Lemon in it, yeah. Yes,
it's lovely. Thanks for joining me today, Sel.
Thank you for having me, as always.
That's all right. Thanks, ladies. Hope you got something out of this. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.